The question is, my fiance is from Morocco. He follows Maliki fiqh. Do Malikis fold their hands over the chest during Salat? I have seen my fiance pray with his hands at his side. Which way is the Maliki fiqh? Where I can get the books on Maliki fiqh and the difference between schools of thought. So it's correct that Malikis pray with their hands on the side. Okay, so that is correct. So again, as I mentioned, I follow the Shafi fiqh, and yes, there will be differences in the way some other people might pray. It's important that we don't criticize people who pray differently. It is an acceptable position to pray with the hands at the sides. This is the way that is conducted in the Maliki fiqh. Where can you get books on Maliki fiqh? What I would refer you to is, I'm not sure exactly which part of the country the person is from, but we do have the Hikmah bookstore, and the Hikmah bookstore has a range of books. I don't know specifically whether they have books on Maliki school, but if somebody sends we can follow up on the email that's come in. And we will provide some input on books. Okay, the other comment, I think Brother Sagir has made this comment, yeah? There is a book, Fiqh Sunnah, okay, Fiqhusunnah. Okay, this is a book that contains the various schools of thought and gives you the opinions from the different schools of thought, schools of fiqh, as to how the variations are in terms of how to pray, whether you put the hands on the side, which are the supplications that are said, and whether to raise the hands against the ears before going into ruku. Some of these differences are described in detail within this book. The book is called Fiqh Sunnah. So just to repeat what Brother Sagir mentioned, this book, Fiqh Sunnah, is probably the most comprehensive book in terms of describing the different positions from the ulama on fiqh issues, and it goes through how certain positions were arrived at in terms of the jurisprudence in the schools of fiqh, and it's a very comprehensive book. Any other questions? Yes, sister. Yeah, so the question is, are there particular surahs of the Quran that are better to recite in certain prayers compared to others? The answer is yes. Well, firstly, the answer is yes. There are certain surahs that it is better to recite in certain prayers compared to others. But it is not wrong to recite a certain prayer here and a certain surah here or a certain surah there. You can recite any surah of the Quran in any prayer or any section of the Quran. There is nothing wrong in terms of what you can recite. Some of the examples are, for example, in the witr prayer. Okay, the last rakat of the witr prayer, it is good to recite Surah Ikhlas. That's Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Allahu Samad. It is good to recite that. It is good to recite in the Maghrib prayer short surahs. Okay, so the Maghrib prayer, it is good to recite short surahs. For the Fajr prayer and Isha prayer, it is good to recite long surahs. Okay, and like that, and the Prophet ﷺ is known that there were certain favorite surahs he had that he would recite in certain prayers, and that in itself can be studied. So just to repeat what Brother Sagir said, he was emphasizing the importance of not hurrying the sujood, the prostration when we put our head on the floor. This is the time when the servant is closest to his Lord, and we should not go quickly into the sajda and straight up again like a bird pecks a grain of rice from the floor. Instead, we need to take our time during the sajda. and this is a time where we should ask of Allah abundantly. So what I mentioned was, what we say there is Subhana Rabbil A'la, but we can extend the supplications, and one should try to extend the supplications, particularly during the sajda. And there are many other du'as and supplications that one can say during this time, and one should feel during this time that they are the closest to Allah. This is the time during the prayer where one should really feel extremely close to Allah during the sajda. When you conclude the dua, the question is, when you conclude the dua, should you wipe over the face? It is, my understanding is yes. So you go like this, okay? So that's how you conclude the dua. The only time, one of the things in the Shafi school is we do dua-i qanut. Which is in the morning prayer, in the Fajr prayer, after the ruku, we raise the hands like this, and then there is a special supplication that is recited at that time. After that supplication, scholars have said you should not wipe the hands; you should go directly into the sajda. But generally, when the supplications after the prayer, for example, or any other time when you are praying, yes. So the question is, what is the advice to somebody who is struggling to perform the prayers? What advice should we give them? So, as I mentioned in the hadith, it's important that we love for our brothers and sisters what we love for ourselves. Okay, this is a very important hadith that we talked about earlier. And to try and implement this, we need to try and love for them that they love the prayer as much as we love the prayer. Okay, so if we love the prayer, we should also love for them that they also become attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the prayer. So what advice can we give them? Firstly, we need to pray for them. Okay, we need to pray for them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes their prayer more punctual, more meaningful, and full of humility, and they're performing it in a timely way. So first thing we need to do, we need to pray for them. But we need to give them advice. We need to try and counsel them. We need to give them the following pieces of advice. Firstly, the importance of the prayer, I think, needs to be re-emphasized. The prayer is the first thing that we will be asked about. When we will be asked about what we have done in our life, okay, we're not going to be asked about whether we were punctual in getting to work, on whether we what our attendance was like at work, what we did in terms of our relationship with our neighbors and our family members. All of these things are important, but the very first thing we're going to be asked about, okay, if our deen is correct, the first thing we'll be asked about was, were our prayers intact? This is the first thing we will be held accountable for. So this is very serious, okay? The prayer is something that is an obligation, and we need to emphasize to people that it is an obligation. Okay, if we perform the prayer, okay, there is immense reward for it. Okay, if we are negligent in the prayer and we don't perform that prayer, there is a sin associated with it. Okay, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with His infinite knowledge, okay, He knows what is good for us and what is harmful for us. Okay, He knows that it is good for us to pray. Okay, and this is why the rewards for prayer are so immense. Okay, there is a huge reward for the prayer. Okay, but there's also a sin associated with not praying. Okay,